Well, what happened between Kate Martin and Angel Reese isn't just another highlight, it's personal payback served ice cold. Remember that LSU championship game? Let's just say Martin didn't forget, but that's not even the craziest part. Wait until you hear what happened with rising star Lexie Hull that has everyone questioning the Rose's coaching decisions. And she was not such a key player for the Las Vegas Aces. A lot of teams passed on her in the draft. Maybe both the Aces will regret letting her go, and those teams will regret passing her up if what she's doing add-on rival translates when she has a bigger share of the offensive burden and the load, because Martin is showing off all the aspects of her game. You know, she's able to be a complementary player, which she showed next to Caitlin Clark at Iowa, but she was kind of thought of as Clark's sidekick in a sense. From benchings to blocks and an ejection that nobody saw coming, this game is leaving fans speechless. Let's break down this wild showdown. Kate Martin may be the breakout star at Unrivaled so far. Not a breakout star in a sense of her notoriety going up, because Kate was always almost more famous in her WNBA professional career so far than her actual production on the floor. But in what she's been able to do out on the floor, that has people wondering if she's primed to do more at the WNBA level with the Golden State Valkyries, where she's expected to be a key player for them. Let me take you back to what might be the most intense 3-on-3 basketball game we've seen this season. Picture this: Venice Beach, perfect weather, and tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. The undefeated Laces Basketball Club rolling in with a perfect record, facing off against Angel Reese's Rose Basketball Club. But nobody could have predicted what was about to go down. Let's start with the moment that had everyone's jaws on the floor. Angel Reese, fresh off her LSU championship victory, probably thought she was in for another highlight reel play. You know how Reese loves those camera-worthy moments, right? Well, Kate Martin had other plans. As Reese drove to the basket, probably already planning her celebration, Martin came out of nowhere like a heat-seeking missile. The block wasn't just clean, it was devastating. The ball didn't just get swatted, it got sent into next week. You should have seen the crowd's reaction. Someone in the stands yelled, "Kate just sent Barbie back to the bayou." The reference to LSU wasn't lost on anyone, especially not on Martin. See, this wasn't just any regular block, this was personal. Remember the national championship game when Reese's LSU took down Martin's Iowa team? Yeah, Martin definitely didn't forget. But here's what makes this story even juicier. The Laces were doing all this with just 4 players. No Alyssa Thomas, no Jackie Young, both out with injuries. Most teams would be scrambling, maybe even making excuses. Not the Laces. They turned what should have been a disadvantage into a masterclass in team basketball. Kayla McBride and Tiffany Hayes were running the show like they'd been playing together their whole lives. Every pass, every cut, every screen, it was basketball poetry in motion. The chemistry between these players is something you can't teach. It's like they've got some kind of telepathic connection on the court. Now let's talk about the Roses' game plan, or should I say lack thereof. They came in thinking they could just rely on individual talent. Big mistake, huge. The Laces were playing chess while the Rose were playing checkers. Every time Reese tried to bully her way to the basket, she found herself running into a perfectly positioned defender. Speaking of Reese, let's address the elephant in the room, her performance. After that monster block from Martin, something changed. It was like watching someone trying to drive with the parking brake on. She was hesitant, second-guessing herself. That signature Reese swagger, gone, vanished, poof. The numbers don't lie either. In the first 4 minutes, Reese put up 4 points, looking like she might have a big game. Then reality hit harder than one of Martin's blocks. The fouls started piling up faster than Instagram likes on a Reese post. 1, 2, 3. Before you knew it, she was playing more cautious than a cat in a room full of rocking chairs. But what really got people talking was how the Laces adapted their defense. They didn't just stop Reese, they made her look ordinary. Every time she got the ball, there were bodies flying everywhere, hands in passing lanes, perfect help defense. It was like watching a masterclass in how to neutralize a star player. The crowd was eating it up too. Every time Martin made a defensive play on Reese, the Venice Beach crowd got louder. You could feel the energy shift. What started as a regular season game turned into something personal, something bigger. This wasn't just about winning anymore. It was about making a statement. And boy, did Martin make that statement. After the big block, she didn't say a word, didn't need to. Her game did all the talking. While Reese was trying to find a rhythm, Martin was everywhere on the court, diving for loose balls, making the extra pass, setting hard screens. It was like watching someone who took all that championship game frustration and turned it into pure basketball excellence. The coaching contrast was fascinating too. Andrew Wade, The Laces coach was like a chess grandmaster. Every substitution, every tactical adjustment was perfect. Meanwhile, the Roses bench looked confused, like they were trying to solve a Rubik's Cube in the dark. Their rotations were mess, their spacing was off, and don't even get me started on their defensive assignments. By the third quarter, you could see the frustration building in Reese's body language. The cameras caught her shaking her head after another Martin defensive stop. This wasn't the game she had imagined. This wasn't the revenge tour she probably had planned after all the social media hype. The Laces' teamwork was something special to watch. Even with just 4 players, they were moving the ball like the Harlem Globetrotters. Quick passes, backdoor cuts, perfect spacing. It was basketball at its finest. McBride would find Hayes cutting to the basket. Dolson would set the perfect screen, and Martin would be there to clean up any misses. You know what's crazy? The Laces actually improved their league-leading stats in this game. Most teams struggling with injuries would see their numbers drop. Not these ladies. They led in rebounds, assists, steals, and had the lowest turnover rate in the league. Talk about making the most of a short roster. And then came the fourth quarter. Reese, already struggling with foul trouble, tried to make one last push. But you know how this story ends. One more foul, and she was done. The walk to the bench was like watching someone who just realized they brought a knife to a gunfight. Game over. Thanks for playing. The final few minutes were just the Laces showing off at this point. Martin even threw in a no-look pass that had the crowd going wild. It was like watching someone put the final touches on a masterpiece. The Rose couldn't do anything but watch as their hopes of an upset disappeared faster than Reese's playing time. Let's dive into what might be the biggest head-scratcher of this whole situation. The Lexie Hall saga. Here's a player who just dropped 19 points in 10 minutes in their last game, leading the Rose to their first and only win of the season. You'd think that would earn her some serious playing time, right? Well, buckle up because this gets weird. In the game against the Laces, Hall spent more time warming the bench than actually playing basketball. 3 minutes. That's all she got until late in the third quarter. Let that sink in. 3 minutes for a player who just had a career game. It's like having a Ferrari and deciding to take the bus instead. The weird part, Coach Nola Henry can't stop praising Hull. After the game, she's talking about how that's just who Lexie is and how she finds ways to make an impact at every level. Really? Is that why she's watching the game from the bench? The disconnect between the coach's words and actions is giving everyone whiplash. When Hull finally got her chance late in the game, she proved everyone right. Her defense was suffocating. Even the unstoppable Laces had trouble getting past her. She was pressing full court, making life difficult for both Kate Martin and Tiffany Hayes. These are elite WNBA players we're talking about, and Hull was locking them down like they were playing in a high school game. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The Rose's offense was sputtering without Hull on the floor. It looked lost, disorganized, like a band playing different songs at the same time. The few minutes Hull was in the game, suddenly they had rhythm, purpose, direction. It was like watching two completely different teams. People in the stands were starting to notice too. You could hear the murmurs. Why isn't Hull playing more? What's going on with the rotations? Even some former players watching the game were shaking their heads. One former WNBA star was overheard saying, "This is coaching malpractice." The statistics tell an even more damning story. In the limited minutes Hull played, the Rose were actually outscoring the Laces. Their defensive rating improved, their turnover numbers went down, and they were getting better shots. But instead of riding the hot hand, the Rose kept their most effective player on the bench. Meanwhile, Angel Reese's struggles continued to mount. It wasn't just the fouls, it was her entire approach to the game. There's this telling moment in the first quarter that sums it up perfectly. Reese gets a steal, has a clear path to the basket, no defenders in sight. Easy bucket, right? Nope. She passes it back to a teammate, trailing the play. Even the commentators were baffled. This leads us to a bigger conversation about the state of the Rose Basketball Club. They're now 1-3 in the season, and the problems run deeper than just weird rotation decisions. There seems to be a fundamental disconnect between their talent and their execution. They've got players like Reese, who's supposed to be a star but can't stay on the court, and Hull, who's proving she deserves more minutes but can't get them. Jason Whitlock's comments about Reese being the most unskilled basketball player in history might be harsh, but they're sparking an important conversation. Is the social media fame affecting her game? Are the Instagram posts and endorsement deals taking priority over developing her basketball skills? The contrast between the two teams' approaches couldn't be more stark. The Laces, even shorthanded, play like a well-oiled machine. Every player knows their role, accepts it, and executes it perfectly. The Rose, they look like they're still trying to figure out who they are as a team. Let's talk about those team dynamics for a minute. The Laces' success isn't just about talent. It's about trust. Watch how they communicate on defense, how they move without the ball, how they celebrate each other's success. Now look at the Rose. The body language tells a story of frustration, confusion, and maybe even a bit of resentment. The coaching decisions in this game will be debated for weeks to come. Why keep Hull on the bench when she's proven she can play? Why not adjust the rotation when it's clear Reese is struggling? These aren't just X's and O's questions. They're about understanding your players and putting them in positions to succeed. As the game wound down, the differences between the teams became even more apparent. The Laces, despite playing with just 4 players, looked fresh and focused. The Rose, with their full roster, looked tired and defeated. It's not just about conditioning, it's about mental toughness and team chemistry. The aftermath of this game could have long-lasting implications for both teams. The Laces have established themselves as the team to beat, proving they can win even without their full roster. Their style of play, unselfish, team-oriented, defensively sound, might become the blueprint for success in this league. For the Rose, this game exposed some serious issues that need addressing. The Hull situation can't continue. You can't keep your best players on the bench and expect to win. And Reese needs to find a way to stay on the court and contribute consistently. The talent is there, but the execution isn't. Looking ahead, both teams are at crossroads. The Laces have a chance to build something special to show that team basketball can triumph over individual stardom. The Rose need to do some soul-searching. Do they stick with their current approach and hope things improve? Or is it time for a complete overhaul of their strategy? This game wasn't just a regular season matchup. It was a snapshot of 2 very different approaches to basketball. One team embracing collaboration and system basketball, the other still trying to figure out their identity. As the season progresses, it'll be fascinating to see which approach proves more successful. One aspect we haven't touched on yet is the impact this game had on social media. Within hours, clips of Martin's block on Reese were everywhere, racking up millions of views, but it wasn't just the highlight plays getting attention. Basketball analysts were breaking down the Hull situation frame by frame, questioning the Rose's entire organizational strategy. The fan reaction has been particularly interesting. Many who came to the game wearing Reese jerseys left talking about Hull's defense and Martin's tenacity. There's a shift happening in how people view women's basketball. It's not just about star power anymore. Fans are starting to appreciate the subtleties of team basketball, the importance of fundamentals, and the beauty of well-executed defensive schemes. This game also highlighted something crucial about the evolution of 3-on-3 basketball. The traditional rules about star players dominating the game don't apply here. Success in this format requires a different skill set, versatility, basketball IQ, and the ability to play both ends of the court effectively. The Laces have figured this out. The Rose are still learning, perhaps the hard way. Looking at the bigger picture, this game might mark a turning point in the league. Teams watching this matchup are probably taking notes. The Laces have provided a blueprint for success, emphasize team play over individual statistics, maintain defensive discipline, and make smart rotation decisions based on performance rather than reputation. For Hull, this game, despite her limited minutes, might have paradoxically raised her stock around the league. Sometimes less playing time creates more intrigue, and her efficiency in those few minutes she did play has people wondering what she could do with a larger role. Several teams are reportedly already showing interest in acquiring her services for next season. As for Reese, this might be the wake-up call she needed. Sometimes a public stumble can lead to private growth. The question is whether she'll use this experience as motivation to expand her game or dismiss it as just a bad day at the office. Her response in the coming games will tell us a lot about her character and her potential for growth in this league. And there you have it, folks. A game that'll be talked about for weeks to come. From Martin's statement block to Hull's puzzling bench time, this matchup proved why the WNBA's 3-on-3 format is must-watch basketball. What do you think about the Rose's coaching decisions? Should Hull have played more minutes? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.